afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Lifestyle CEO Show. I'm your host, Donna Maria, the original Lifestyle CEO, and you have arrived at the one place on your internet dial where we empower you to break all the rules, build your own corporate ladder, and create the life you love. Well, it's July 31st, and summer is in full swing, and I guess officially it's as hot as I ever remember it being here on the East Coast. We've got triple digits, and I know that you guys on the West Coast sent that to us. Thank you very much, because you were suffering last week, and it looks like it's our turn. So we are here at the show in an air-conditioned office, and even though things are cool in here, they are hot outside, and they are also hot in the life of our guest today. Today's guest is Stacy DeBroff, and she is a mom and a businesswoman, and also a spokesperson for companies that want to reach moms. So today's show is going to be all about a business owner, wife, and mother, and how she balances it all. And Stacy's going to provide some tips and hints and tricks for all of us to help us kind of keep it all together and kind of, as I always say, create the life we love and also make some contributions to the family's financial bottom line. Stacy is the owner of Mom Central. She's the author of several books under that brand: the Mom Goes to School book, the Mom Book, and other books to help moms be better at what they do. Stacy is a regular contributor to the Today Show, the morning show, which is one of my favorites, and she talks about all things mom everywhere she goes. Stacy DeBroff, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on, Donna.
Well, you are welcome, and I just want to share a little bit about how I met you, and I know that that you have a lot more to share about your background, and I love to do that, too, because I want people to know, who it is and what background the guests come from. But just so everyone knows, if you haven't already discovered Club Mom at clubmom.com, that's how I met Stacy. I am so excited to announce that I am one of the Club Mom experts. And my area, is entrepreneurship and moms working at home. And Club Mom is at clubmom.com. And it's just a wonderful resource. We'll talk about it a little bit more. But I met Stacy through Club Mom because she is one of the spokeswomen for Club Mom, and she's doing a great job sharing information and her blog at Club Mom's website. It's just a wonderful resource. So that's how I met Stacy. Now, Stacy, please start by giving us a little bit of a rundown on your background and mainly how you got started as a mom in business. Because as you know, all those lifestyle CEOs out there are parents. They've got lots of things on their plate, but they are determined to have a successful business. Tell us a little bit about how you did that.
Sure, Donna. Well, I started out my career as a lawyer, and I had, during my kind of early 30s to mid-30s, for 9 years, I founded and directed the Public Interest Office at Harvard Law School, where I had a group of attorneys working with me, and we were doing public service counseling to students and helping them think about a broader career path than just going into straight corporate work, which was the typical path and high salary path coming out of the law school. And part of the mandate of the office, I started there, which was the first of its kind ever in a law school, and ended up spawning similar offices throughout the country and all the different law schools, and got a lot of publicity as part of that, was really sitting down and talking about what each student's vision was. What is it that was meaningful enough to spend your lifetime doing it? What did you really care about? How were you going to make a difference? And how were you going to blend that into all the complex tapestry of your life? And I love that. And I could have done it for years and years to come. But I had a staff that was in place. My kids at the time were 4 and 5, and I really wanted to be more available to them at home. And so I decided that I needed to reinvent myself career-wise. I wanted to go from a very vibrant office where I was just in the midst of hundreds of students and lots of activity to being able to be home with my kids, which was a huge change-up. And at the time, I pasted this really large picture I got out of one of the magazines, which was a picture of a bungee jumper. And it was so scary. It's very scary to change up and to say, I'm going to go and try something really new, way outside my risk profile, and just see how it goes. And what's amazing is if you follow truly what you're passionate about, and especially if you have an entrepreneurial bug in your system, which I did, found that all these opportunities presented themselves across time that I would have never imagined that I was leaving to go do them, leaving from this very structured job to go do. And honestly, the first 6 months, I felt like I had re-architected my world, that everything was up for grabs, that, it's you, your home computer, you're thinking, how am I going to do this? And one of the ways I started is a friend had approached me while I was still in my job and said, why is it that moms are so disorganized? Why is it that we can run these offices and be incredibly efficient at work, and we come home and there's no milk in the fridge and the shoes that fit yesterday don't fit today? How can we address that? And so with this friend, I wrote really just an organizer for moms called Mom Central, the Ultimate Family Organizer.
Okay, and that was your first book, right?
That was my very first book. It was in 1998, so it's now 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I tend to think, and I think it's so helpful to do this for all of us, is to think of our life in terms of what I call vision quests. Like, how are we defining pockets of our lives? And I found that my visions, like the things that I really passionately plunge into, last about 8 years. That just happens to be my cycle. It's interesting because I'm now changing up again, having done 8 years as kind of an author, mom expert. But so what I did is I said, I've dedicated 8 years, I've transformed the landscape of Harvard Law School, but now I really want to reach moms because I felt that we are in a very unusual generation where the norms of what it means to be a mom are very much up in grabs. When we were growing up, there was the stay-at-home mom was the ideal. Most women only dabbled in volunteer work, maybe a little part-time work, and we had the kind of Leave It to Beaver, June Cleaver, the mom, the baking of cookies, available after school. And then when we went to school, we were told, be all you can be. It was the feminist movement. There was a feeling that we could go to school and we could be anything. We could be senator. We could run our businesses. We could do whatever we wanted. And what happened to many of us, at least I found in my experience with hundreds of moms that I've talked with, is that we found ourselves at a crossroads where we both had these passionate career ambitions. We wanted to do something that both made a difference, that made a living contributing to our families, that engaged us intellectually, that developed a career for ourselves, and yet we were still the ones worried about, is there toilet paper? I'm the only one who notices we've run out. Set presents for all the cousins, nurturing the kids, sick days. And the minute you become a mom, and as a woman, rise up into this relationships where you're taking care of others and you're, making sure that everybody is connected within your families and your friendships, it's very hard to find a middle ground. And so what happened is many of the working moms, if you work full-time, you feel guilty because you're missing out, you're always behind, you're not with your kids during the day, and it's a scramble to keep up with the housework and all the logistics and all the connectivity. If you are staying at home with your kids, you feel like you've had to give up a career and had to give up some of the passions that drove you. And if you work part-time, like I consider myself, you feel as if oftentimes you straddle both worlds and only do them halfway. Mm. And so I really dedicated the next 8 years, which have been these 8 years, to writing books, to really focusing on what it took to be a mom today and tips and advice on how to make that easy. And in the process, I founded Mom Central.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's an incredible story. I love the cyclical nature of it. It's interesting that probably a lot of people experience that without pinpointing it. So I'm glad you mentioned it, because me included can kind of look back and sort of count the years and see when things change. But Stacy, back to when you were at Harvard, when your children were 4 and 5, you decided you wanted to do something different. Did you just give notice and then come home and decide what you wanted to do, or did you decide before that? Did you work part-time at home on your own business to kind of get things going? How did you do it?
Well, I'm a total chicken because my risk profile is like, don't take risk.
Okay.
So what I did is I really am a kind of person that needs to segue. So I started part-time writing this book, which wasn't really much of writing because it was really organizational lists for parents. It was like the great checklists, one place to keep by your phone everything that you need to know in your brain that somehow only we women know, and nobody else seems to have the number for the electrician, or the sewer repair guy. So I focused on that, and then when I left Harvard was the date that the book was coming out. So I had kind of just jump-started, but really it was all new. And so it felt like I was going into a very unstructured thing, but I had incorporated, I had gotten the basics together, the letterhead, the very beginnings of a website, and I had a book launch coming up. And
you were ready to go. You kind of had your diving board prepared.
I did, and I think that it depends on whether I happen to be in a position where I had changed my work to only be 3 days a week at Harvard. So I was really in a position, Donna, where I could say, okay, I am going to strategize on the other days. I'm going to really think about how I can make this work for me. And also I didn't want to have a gap in salary because I was contributing to our family income. So I didn't want to really just completely start up, although it certainly felt like that. And it was just a leap of faith. I just had to believe that what I was doing was going to be meaningful and that it would end up being as fulfilling and as exciting and ultimately as rewarding as the work that I had been doing for the past 8 years was. And it turned out to be all those things. And the thing that it taught me is the amazing ability all of us have to completely reinvent ourselves. Now, nobody remotely knows that I'm a lawyer, that I had this whole stint at Harvard Law School, although sometimes they email me with, like, hilarious emails, like, we can't believe what you're up to now that I'm on the Today Show. I'm, like, every 3 weeks I get pinged by emails from people who are catching the segments and are trying to reconcile my two career lives. But I think that what happened is an entire world, a whole universe unfolded in front of me, and there were fits and starts and things that happened that weren't great. And at the end of the day, I had no idea, but it was a huge adventure of discovery. And I have grown so much. I have learned so much. I have built such a successful business, all doing things that I picked because I really cared about them and I really loved doing them. And I went through a point where it was the big .com boom, and investors wanted to put $2 million into my company, and I was on the verge of closing the round of that money. And then I realized, wait a second, I am in a position where I want to still have time for my kids. I can't really work 24/7. So how am I going to balance these two?
Right.
And so what I found is it's led me to so many adventures, and I've learned so much along the way, and now I have the thrill of helping others who are launching earlier in this trajectory.
Right.
But it's amazing because you think you're going to do one thing, and then all these other opportunities unfold before you. So I thought that I was just going to write books and really be an expert, and there is something to be said for legitimizing a business to have a book behind it. Because even if you're gathering stories or gathering tips or pulling things together, even if you're not to the point of publishing, like I ended up publishing with, my first book was with a Japanese press that delivered a very beautiful, very complicated 3-ring bound book. But then my last 3 books have been with Simon & Schuster. And even if you're not going to go with a big publisher, there is a lot to say, and I've learned so much about how important branding yourself is, about having a real concise idea of what it is that you want your business and your expertise to focus on, and what it is that you do really well, and what kinds of things make you reach for Advil, and you think, I cannot stand this. It is so not me.
Right. We have to take our first break, but I'm so excited to be able to come back after our break and pick up on exactly those things.
Great.
In large part, really just, encouraging people that, you start out in one place and then the opportunities come that can lead you elsewhere. We're going to come back in a little bit and talk with Stacy about some of her experiences in that regard. This is Donna Maria on the Lifestyle CEO Show. We'll be right back.
Why is everyone listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com? Because it's the future of talk radio. Every day, more and more people are finding internet radio as not just an alternative media, but as a replacement to traditional AM and FM broadcast stations. Internet radio offers a wider variety of programs, convenient on-demand listening that meets your schedule, and fewer commercial interruptions. And GlobalTalkRadio.com is already leading the way by matching this content with a highly targeted internet audience. GlobalTalkRadio.com offers its listeners one of the widest programming varieties on the internet, from business and finance to self-improvement, paranormal, health, literature, romance, politics, and more. There are also opportunities for prospective hosts who would like to host their own weekly or one-time talk shows. Want to learn more? Check us out at www.globaltalkradio.com and see the future of talk radio today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Lifestyle CEO Show. We are with Mom Central owner and mom spokesperson Stacy DeBroff today. And before we left off for our break, Stacy was sharing some of the concepts that she has discovered about the cyclical nature of a woman's life, particularly when she's also a business owner. Stacy started out leaving a full-time job, or it was part-time by then, and she talked about writing a book and then how things just evolved and opportunities just arose. Stacy, can you talk a little bit about that feeling of, and really the reality of putting yourself out there, and how when you do that, opportunities begin to come your way?
Sure, Donna. Well, it's interesting. Just even the process of writing a book, I knew nothing. I had written some things through my prior job that had been self-published within the kind of Harvard context, but I knew nothing about writing a book in America. I knew nothing about starting a business, although it was very ironic because my husband went to Harvard Business School. So I'd be like begging information. I'm like, honey, what should I do? How do I even get a business line set up?
Right.
And he said, I can't believe you graduated college with honors and you cannot figure this out. I can't believe you went to law school and you're sitting here debating like what your first fax machine should be and what your business card should read. And what I found is I had to turn to lots of people for advice. And I actually ended up writing books because I ended up meeting a woman at a women's dinner, and she was writing a book at the time on women negotiation, and we just struck up a conversation. I was telling her about my ideas and my background, and she said, you know, Stacy, I've got to put you in touch with my literary agent. And one thing I have to say, Donna, is across time, honestly, the things that can benefit you the most in starting a business and running a business is the relationships that you form with people.
Okay.
And I really have found that those relationships have led me to just incredible next steps. For example, the first publisher that I went with was a very big Japanese publisher, very small American presence, and they published a very beautiful book but had no idea how to market it. But the book reached the hands of a guy who was in charge of marketing with Target. Now, this is one of the early business setback stories. And Target said, boy, Stacy, we're thinking of making you like Martha Stewart. We're going to create Mom Central kiosks. We're going to really blast people to momcentral.com. They flew me out twice, had me in limos. It was hilarious because Target wasn't yet on the East Coast. It was in 1989. And so they had a limo driver taking me to a Target at a strip mall. And people are looking at me like, if I had a limo, I wouldn't go shop at Target. But I'm sitting there saying, look at these cute little shoes for like $3. So I started stacking up my little suit carrier. And at the end of the day, my small publisher fell through and could not deliver the 100,000 copies of the book that Target wanted. And Target has very specific deliverables. They have to be like 2 to 5 books to every store in the U.S. every week. And the deal fell through, and I was devastated. But the guy who brought me that deal then introduced me, took the deal, and said, look, this deal fell through, and took me to the head of Simon & Schuster's Free Press, which is their large and prestigious trade division. And they ended up offering me a 6-figure advance to write a book for them. And so it was ironic that out of this failed seeming incredible opportunity came so many other things. And I found that happens again and again. And what happened is, as I wrote more books and interviewed more moms and connected with more people through the media started calling, and I started doing more radio, and I even volunteered a number of years ago to do parenting segments here in the Boston area where I live, because I could talk to print and radio all day. I'm a very outgoing, kind of charismatic personality, so it was easy for me to just go on and on. But TV is a very unusual medium, and so I volunteered to do these parenting segments once a week just to learn how to produce, write, and do my own 4-minute segments. And at first, it was painful. I was freezing in front of the camera. I was trying to memorize my lines. I was about to write them on the back of my hand. I was like, this is crazy. And yet through that experience, it led to more opportunities. It led to paying opportunities on a Good Morning Boston show. And then over the past year, I became a regular on the Today Show. Over the last 9 weeks, I've been going every 3 weeks, and I've been going like once a month. And it's amazing because that's sort of the pinnacle of TV. You have 6 million people watching, and I sit down and I am so comfortable thanks to my 5 zillion volunteer episodes and ones that I was just working on local TV in my area of mom expertise. And similarly, what happened is I was a guy on there in the media, and I became more and more savvy about what we moms like and what we care about. And I started getting approached by large companies, and it started with actually being pulled in as a consultant for companies that were trying to reach moms and needed to work on the language they were using. They sounded very marketing, like You Promise was doing a huge college savings, and they just sounded so marketing focused. And I said, really, this is about parents being able to send their kids for college. I mean, this is a whole different aspect. And so I ended up both developing consulting work, which was incredibly lucrative, to come in for corporations ranging from Whirlpool to Glad to AAA, to come in and look at how they were messaging and the real depth of what they were trying to say to the moms that use their services. Mm-hmm. And that has continued to just grow by leaps and bounds. And the second piece that developed out of that was I got approached by companies to serve as their spokesperson. And what's really exciting about serving as a spokesperson is, first of all, you get tons of TV, print, and radio exposure. As an example, I leave actually in just a couple hours to go on week 2 of a tour that I'm doing for Office Depot. And so I'm serving as Office Depot's spokesperson. But what's fantastic about this campaign, and it's also typical of the kind of campaigns I've chosen to work on, is Office Depot is doing a campaign where I come in as a mom expert, and we're focusing on Organized to Learn, about getting kids organized to learn, because it turns out in my research from The Mom Book Goes to School, the 350 teachers I interviewed were saying how if kids aren't organized, it doesn't matter how proficient they are in reading or math or how smart they are, they start missing homework assignments, they're disorganized studiers, and then it affects their classroom performance and how they're doing in academically. And so the message is so true to my heart. It's something I care about. It's something that parents don't often think of. And so I come with tips and tools as partnering with Office Depot and created at school.com a downloadable booklet for parents. And the thing about it is that it's now, I head off this week to Atlanta, Dallas, Houston. And so all of a sudden you're branding, you're partnering with great corporate partners who extend your brand, who extend your media, who get you out there, and you're still doing work that you feel great about because you care.
Right, and you're back to those relationships again, no matter where you are in the course of your career and how important they are. But Stacy, how old are your kids now?
Well, that's a great question to ask me. My kids are now 12 and 13. And so right now they're at 4 weeks of camp down in North Carolina, so I can sneak out and travel, which I usually don't travel as much as this particular campaign involves, because I'm kind of on Camp Stacy here, where they don't know that I'm gone. Mm-hmm. But typically, even if I'm going to consult or do the Today Show or do a media show, like I'm coming up at the end of August, I'll be on Fox and Friends, it's just a one-day trip. So my kids really, by the time I'm missing one night, and then by the time they get back from school, I'm back, or
Yeah, and isn't it great that I know at your website I noticed you took one of your daughters with you to today's show?
Yeah, I have a daughter and a son, and for the first time, my daughter was out of school. It was just 3 weeks ago, and I said, "Look, do you want to come with me? Because I'm going on the Today Show," and it was sort of take your daughter to work idea. And at first she's like, "No, I don't want to go. It's going to be so boring. There won't be anything for me to do." And I said, "Well, it's kind of fun to come see behind the scenes. Why don't you come with me and check it out?" And it turned out the two guests that day were Nick Lachey. I had to learn how to pronounce his last name. And Zach and Colby from the Disney show. And she was so thrilled to be in makeup and to see and to meet Nick Lachey and have pictures taken with him. And it was just like there was this hubbub of excitement. And she said, "Mom, I had no idea that this is what you do. It's so exciting. When can I come again?" And it was funny because I just went on last Monday and I was thinking it was boring. I'm like so glad she didn't come that day. I mean, it was great for me, but she would have thought, "Who are these people? I don't know any of them or their books."
That makes a good day. But that's one of the things that is so exciting to see and to share with listeners too. Is that as moms, we have our kids, and we are able as business owners to not only instruct them and encourage them and teach them in the ways of home management, but also in the ways of business ownership.
They so pick up on that.
The way it is today, it's so necessary to expose them to business ownership as for our sons as well, but in particular for the women for our daughters who are going to one day perhaps marry and have children, to have them see that, it can be done.
Mm-hmm. And not just done, but done with passion and with humor and with balance. So even though on paper I'm like, it seems like I'm doing all these exciting things, and I am doing wondrous things that are so fun, and there are times where, of course I have flexibility so I can be up late at night after the kids go to bed, finishing up consulting work or some of the writing that I'm doing, or, catching phone calls in the morning. But at the end of the day, my kids look at me and they think I have the coolest job. They're like, "You love your job." Yeah. And they just see that passion. And because I'm working out the house, and I've set my house up now so I can have 4, staff working crunched into the home office space with me, but it just lends a real sense of camaraderie and teamwork. And so even though I'm running a substantial business, it's really in the context of being able to balance both. And I think that my kids really pick up on that, and there's a role modeling piece to that's surprising how much they absorb.
Sure, and it's amazing that they get to participate in that, and that passion that you talked about is really what. Well, of course, Lifestyle CEO is all about that. It's owning a business not just for financial reasons, but also because you are fulfilling a passion, and what you're describing is how you help other mothers and help other companies to reach mothers. And talk a little bit, if you would. We have about 5 minutes left before our next break. You mentioned a little bit ago about the importance to your career and perhaps any business owner's career of a book.
Yes. The two things that I had mentioned, Donna, were a book and the connectivity with others. Mm-hmm. It's amazing, it's like you and I meeting and then doing this together and having other opportunities to support each other. But what a book does is a book is an incredible establisher of expertise. Whether you're running an organizing business out of your house or you're a specialist in some form of communications or writing, if you write, even if it's just a tips book, even if it's not dramatic, it doesn't have to be long, but if it's just something that really lends insight into what it is that you do, what it is that is behind what you do, any of the expertise that you build along the way, it gives you instant credibility. And all of a sudden, you'll get calls from the media saying, "I saw that you have a book on this, and I'm really interested in talking to you about how best to set up a home office," or the best ways to blend technology into our lives, our busy lives as parents. And the next thing you know, you just get an influx where you start building a reputation. But often, what I think writing does. And there are many other ways to go about this because, of course, you can focus on building up your client and building up other bases that can establish you. But the one thing a book does is it gives you credibility. It jumpstarts your business by about 3 years because you just get this recognized credibility out there. And so people defer to what it backs you up and establishes an expertise that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do.
Yeah, and it's so great to be able to share that because you have a publisher now, Simon & Schuster, but you started with a small one. So
and even now, I know a lot of very successful business owners who have self-published, and then oftentimes their book gets picked up by a larger print house. And honestly, I think that's an excellent way to go as well.
Oh, that's what happened to me. My publisher was Kinko's.
Mm-hmm.
I was. Every time I got an order, I would go there and make however many copies I had, and I would pass the checks, and this was before the Internet, and my one was sold to a woman in Germany, so I was an international author. The thing is that what happened was a publishing house did come and picked it up, and that's just, again, what you're talking about is putting yourself out there.
Yep, you've got to take a risk. You've got to just say, okay, I am going to leave my comfort zone. When I first started my business, honestly, what I did, Donna, and it was so scary for me, and I say that outgoing here, I forced myself to make phone calls. I was like, I'm just going to call people up. The worst thing that will happen is they're like, I don't want to talk to you. Why are you calling me? And so I call people up and say, I'm just starting. I so admire what you've done with your business, and I'm wondering if you can give me some advice, if you can, just get me jump-started, or can you tell me any ways that you think, I should go about this? And all it took were 3 people out of every 15 who just really were generous of spirit, and as a result, I've always been that way myself, to try to help people as much as I can, and I've just gathered an unbelievable collection of fantastic business owners around me because I just adore them, and it ends up being so mutually beneficial. It really ends up like they can't do something, there's an opportunity, and they'll call me, or I'll say, here's something, I got called by this corporation, but it really conflicts with something else I'm doing. Do you want to take it on? It's really exciting. And so I think that there is just enormous opportunity. There's a huge movement, a trend afoot for people to start small businesses.
Well, and I love that you mentioned that because not just a trend, but in many cases a necessity. And because of the way the job market is going and other kinds of things. But we're going to come back and talk for just a few more minutes with Stacy before she has to run off and catch her next plane. I'm going to let you guys know that you can call in your question or comment. We probably have room for 1 or 2 before we have to let her go at 800-773-0355. This is the Lifestyle CEO Show. We'll be right back.
Want to stay on top of what's new in the radio industry? Sign up for a free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio, available exclusively to listeners of globaltalkradio.com, and find out what's new in the world of online radio. Listeners can find out about new shows and special guests. People with something special to offer can find out how to become a guest and how to prepare for an interview. And prospective hosts will find a valuable resource for everything from planning a new program to selecting topics and guests, recouping expenses by selling advertising, and more. Sign up today for your free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio by visiting www.globaltalkradio.com and learn about the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to the Lifestyle CEO Show. I'm your host, Donna Maria, and we are here talking with Mom Central owner Stacy DeBroff. And Stacy was just talking with us about how significant it is and how important it is to have, if you're able to have a book to kind of establish your credibility. And Stacy, wouldn't you say that's the case no matter what it is you're selling?
Irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Because you can always have an expertise on anything you're involved in.
Right, and I talk with so many people who think that because they sell products and not services, that a book, let's take, for example, Doris Christopher, who's the owner of Pampered Chef. Now, she's been in business now for 25 or 30 years, so she's established as, she sells cooker's tools, chef's tools. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is she could have written the book several years ago and used it as a vehicle to establish the business and expanded on opportunities. So anybody can do it.
Yeah. I mean, even if you're selling cooking stuff, you could have, like, the top 125 shortcuts. You could just come out with, 100 uses of baking soda. People are like, wow, who knew? They're just anything that saves people time, that gives them insights. For example, if you're let's say that you're just selling kids' toys, but then you start writing about ways to engage kids to play and great tips and advice or fun birthday party ideas or ways to utilize and what trends are coming up to look for in toys for your kids or how to deal with fights over toys or toy timeouts. It can really provide this whole base of a building of an expertise. So you want to go up and say, what is the larger thing you're involved in? For example, the Pampered Chef, as just as an example of that, you would say, well, the much larger vision of what's going on here is about trying to make cooking fun and easy because we have like a 33% decline in the number of people who sit down for family dinners. There's a lot to be said about women in the kitchen today. And so that, it's not just the products, but it elevates beyond the products to the larger issue, which is why can't women find the time to cook and make it less of an onerous task. And underlying that, ultimately, is the business. And so you can see...
How can what you do and your knowledge, your background, your educational experiences, how can they help people improve their lifestyle?
Exactly. How is it that you can translate what you have into tips, advice, love to reprint, like the top 10, top 15 tips?
Right. And if you don't want to start big, for crying out loud, you can have a 2-page, 20-step to your website and have it as a PDF, and you can expand that into a book.
Right. Or it could just be, let's say you start a gift card business. Like then you talk about ways to get the holiday cards out the door, or ways to really stay in touch, or great things to reminders to be in touch with people you're close with. All those things become part of, yes, you're selling cards, but it's a much larger movement about connectivity and distance and staying close. And I think that I think that you could challenge us, but almost anything can be translated into a vehicle like this.
Well, and there are so many places now where you can go. You don't have to just use the local copy shop like I did to get started.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of resources online to do it very inexpensively.
Go on your favorite search engine and type on self-published book, and you'll come up with any number of companies that will take your manuscript and turn it into a book and bind it to you. Right.
And then it's amazing because, and the other thing about self-publishing is that everything you sell comes straight back to you. Whereas I might get $2 a book for Simon & Schuster. If you sell a book for $10, then you're making $9.
Right.
Amazing.
That does make a big difference, although sometimes it can be a little bit different because you can sell so much more volume.
Right. You get so much more volume with a publisher, which is absolutely true.
Right. And so Stacy, we've only got a few minutes left with you. I want to ask you to share a little bit about Club Mom. I know I walked into the grocery store a couple of years ago, and a man came up to me and gave me a Club Mom water bottle and said, there's savings here, and you can win a Dodge Durango or whatever it was at the time. And, of course, I signed right up and went to the website. And, I just want to talk for a second about how great a resource that is, and also about one of the wonderful founders of it, Meredith Vieira.
Who's joined the Today Show. Everyone's excited for her to come on board in September.
Yeah, it's just so exciting to see, how her career has developed as the first woman who actually sat down with an executive at a media conglomerate and said, I want to work for part-time so I can be with my children more.
That's so true. I think that Club Mom is incredible. It's clubmom.com, and one of the things I help them with, I was brought in by their CEO and their marketing team, who's fabulous. They have 3 million moms. It's just amazing, and they have tons of stuff up. Great chat boards, amazing content. I brought over 200 experts in really diverse areas, just like Donna, you're the expert on entrepreneurship and the lifestyle CEO piece of what you do, and it's amazing how much we are finding information online. Meredith Vieira was one of the co-founders, and Club Mom started as an offline loyalty rewards program for women, for moms, and then it really evolved, and now it is just the most vibrant website. It has incredible stuff, and in fact, so many times I'm at my momcentral.com community where I get lots of people, I cross-reference them over there because they've pulled together resources that are just so impressive, and it's definitely worth checking out. It's been an incredibly fun thing to be a part of, and just an amazing site.
And it's free to join for anyone who's not a member. You can go to Club Mom and just fill out the form, and you
just give your email. Yep.
Points for prizes and things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's also, you get, for any shopping that you do through them, they pass on to you this kind of incentive from the different manufacturers, so you can quickly accumulate points and translate those into very concrete benefits.
That's right. And so where can we go to meet you, Stacy? Or I guess we can see you on TV every now and then.
You can come to my website, momcentral.com, zip me an email, and just I hope that the one thing I can leave everyone with is this sense of just really having faith that when you follow a vision, when you articulate what it is you most care about and get very specific about what it is you want to do, that you'll be amazed at not only the opportunities that will follow you, but also the success and the lucrative piece of what you're trying to put together. Mm-hmm. It's very fun.
So get the book or get something in people's hands where they can read about your, what it is that you have to offer. Nurture those relationships and look for the opportunities to come.
That's it.
Well, that's very encouraging advice, Stacy, and we'll be looking for you on the Today Show and, of course,
that sounds great.
.com, where we can get your books. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Donna.
Have safe travels.
All right, thank you.
Stacy was a great guest. I have to say, wouldn't you say, she is able to... well, first of all, she is a real easy interview because she's so full of energy and just seems to always know the next thing to say. But also, it's really interesting to note, while I just met Stacy a few months ago, actually formally met her, I knew about her for a long time because I have been visiting her website over the years. And if you go there today, you will see a very different website from what you saw even just last week. I think this is a brand new website that just went up. And that is important because if you go to visit archive.org, which is a website where you can go and you can put in any domain name that's been online for any period of time, and you can go back in time and see what their website was 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 or 6 years ago. It just depends on how old the website is. But if you go to archive.org, or I think there's something called waybackmachine.com, one or the other, or both of those, you can go in and put in the website that you're looking for and see a snapshot of what that person's or what that business's website was years ago. And one of the things that is so encouraging to see when you do that is that you get to see where people started. We all go to someone's website today and we say, wow, that's such a great website, I could never do that. How could I come into the market with a similar product, and that website's so great I can't compete. But the fact of the matter is that website didn't just start out of the blue looking like that. More often than not, particularly if it's a mom-owned business, it started looking pretty slim and maybe without many bells and whistles or pictures or anything. But the point that Stacy made, which I think is so important, is that whoever's behind that website took the first step. And the other thing that we didn't get a chance to talk about was that person was consistent with their message. They didn't just start a business, try it out for a couple of years, and say, this really isn't working. I think I'm going to move on to something else, which basically puts you at square one again, unless you have a platform already there, which if you do, it's definitely something to think about. But if not, and you're just starting from scratch again, and it's just going to be kind of, a serial business owner, I'm going to start one here, and a couple of years later I'm going to start a new one and see what can happen. It really does take the wind out of your sails and also the wind out of your customer sales, because what you're trying to do is to build that brand awareness and that consumer awareness. And when people see you doing the same thing over and over again, they begin to know that they can come to you for things. They begin to know you for particular things. And the other thing that I thought was so great about what Stacy said, and I hope that everyone will really think about this, I know I am after the show today, is how her business has run in cycles. She talked about how she first, of course, was part-time at the university. And then she came home and decided to start her own business, which for all practical purposes was what she said was writing a book. She wrote a mom's tip book. And without having any idea what was going to happen after that, she's noticing that her business life kind of goes in cycles. Every 8 years, it seems like something changes. Well, that ought to tell you something right now, right there, and that is that, you got to do something for a while before you can actually see the benefits. And, of course, the Small Business Administration and Entrepreneur Magazine and Statistics Forever have said that you have to be in business for at least 5 years before you really start to see the financial benefits. Now, there's obviously exceptions to that rule. Some people have to do it for longer than that. Some people have to do it for shorter than that. It just depends. But on average, 5 years seems to be a good rule of thumb. And what Stacy's discovered is that between that 5 and 8 year period, sort of the new reinvention of herself takes on a different flow, and she's on to something else. And in her case, she started the first 8 years doing the books. The second 8 years seemed to be consulting. She was working with individual companies on a one-on-one basis to help them reach their target market, which she said is women and mothers. And now she said she's starting the next phase of her business. She's been doing it for about 16 years now. The new phase, which is a media spokesperson, a media personality. And I think that is so exciting because when she first left her job 16 years ago to start writing a book, who knew that what would develop is a media personality? And, of course, it doesn't sound like she was planning that. It sounds like, again, as she said, the opportunities just tend to come when you put yourself out there. And as she said, you take a risk. There's no payoff without the risk. And I want to share something that I saw on television last week. Many of you may have seen this story about this young man named Farrah Gray, and I may be pronouncing it incorrectly. It's spelled the same way as the movie star whose first name is Farrah, but it's not pronounced that way. I think it's Farrah, and his last name is Gray. This is a young man who I believe is in his early 20s today, and he was on a television show, a news show last week, talking about how he started his businesses. He is a multimillionaire from the project, low-income housing in, I think it was the Chicago area. When he was 4 years old, he collected rocks in his neighborhood, and he would paint them and take them around from door to door, and he would sell them to people. He would literally sell people rocks that he 20 minutes before picked up from in front of their house and painted them. And his mother was a single mom, and she didn't have enough money to get him a briefcase. And he begged her for one, but a briefcase was not forthcoming, apparently, at the time. So when he was 6 or 7 years old, he found a lunchbox, and that was his briefcase. And he put on his older brother's clip-on tie, and he was off. And so, he became a radio talk show host by the age of 12. And so the idea is, once again, of course, you have far less to risk when you're 4 years old, and I guess if you're living in low-income housing, you have very little to risk. But ultimately, for all of us, the issue is the same. If you want to own something of your own, if you want to be a lifestyle CEO, the CEO of your lifestyle and your business, you have to take a risk and step out there. And as Stacy, our guest today, said, get that bungee cord ready to go and put as much of a cushion underneath you as you can, but be ready to jump. Be ready, as she said and others have said, to write a book, and be ready to cultivate and maintain relationships. and then be ready for the opportunities to come. And we have got several shows coming up for you to help you do all of those things. The Lifestyle CEO Show is going to be welcoming professional printers next week on August the 7th. Lisa Camella of udesignweprint.com is going to talk about how to print high-quality marketing pieces on a budget. And later next month, we also have the e-zine queen, Alexandria Brown, who's going to tell us how to create an online magazine that complements our business and increases sales. If you missed last week's show, it was great on financial planning, and the one before that on how to write your own blog. So if you want to learn all the pieces that you need to make a Lifestyle CEO business a success, you get them right here at the Lifestyle CEO Show. We're going to sign off now. Next week, we'll be back with Lisa Camella of udesignweprint.com. In the meantime, break all the rules, build your own corporate ladder, and create the life you love. See you next week, guys.
You're listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com.